Hey everybody, it's Mike Brown, the founder of FlowTrack, and I'm going to show you guys how you guys can get started in the website builder. We always get a lot of questions about this, so it's time to do another video. And in fact, I think we should do a lot more videos on how to use the website builder so you guys can get in here and start humming away. So I see Jacob commenting, hello, Mike. So hello back at you. Good afternoon. And so let's go ahead and dive in. So the website builder was one of the things in FlowTrack that needed the most love and attention to get it to be where we want it to be. And we're going to be constantly building on that to get it to be best in class website builder. And so let's dive in and just show you some of the things that you can do in there. And I thought it would be fun to just kind of quickly create or recreate like the FlowTrack website right now. You guys can see how easy that is to do in here. So let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We'll do the picture mode. Actually do this mode over here so you guys can see a little bit more of my screen. Perfect. So, all right. So I'm just going to start from a brand new, fresh project, right? We're just going to call this demo and we're going to launch the website builder. So we're really just starting from scratch so you guys can kind of see what I go through in the design process when I'm building a page. And yeah, a lot of times it's just a lot easier to see what someone else is doing. So you know where to start and what to do. So I launched the website builder. And so first thing we got to do is we got to add a page, right? So add a page in the builder, just click add page. I'm not going to start from a template. I'm going to create an empty page. And now, the first thing I like to do in here is I like to actually use the global styles now. And so the global styles allows you to set the styles for everything in the designer. So you have the styles set by default. And so you can actually drag like some stuff to your page. Like we got text, we got subheading, we got heading. And this way, when we're changing the global styles, we can actually see what it looks like as we're doing it. The first thing I did on the FlowTrack site was I just changed the font to Inter. So we got this font in here called Inter. It's one of the Google fonts. So I can click on that. So I updated that, updated the paragraph. Next, I'm going to update the heading. So I'm going to also change that to Inter, right? That looks good. I also want to make the heading bold. So we'll make that one bold. And a lot of times on headings, you see less letter spacing just because it's bigger text. So you can actually come in here and put like a negative number. We'll say like -2, right? So we'll have a little less spacing in there, which is nice. Same thing with the subheading. I'll go ahead and make that a negative letter spacing. So I'll just put in like a -2. And now it's starting to look good. I also want to change this font to Inter. And so I'm literally just changing all the fonts and the sizes of all these. So I got heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. I can keep going down. And I'm going to do the button, right? So the button, same thing. I want to change this to be my font, Inter. And we'll go ahead and update the size of this button text to just be a little bit bigger. I think we're going to do like a 22. Something like that looks good. And let's just make it bold. Like I like those big bold buttons. Maybe not that bold. We'll do semi-bold. That looks good. And we're going to change the font, the global color of this button to be white. So it looks good on that blue background. And if you guys have any questions, go ahead and drop them in the chat as we're designing it. And we'll answer those either as we're going or at the end. So I got my global styles set, right? Everything's looking good. I'm kind of happy with this font. I'm happy with this palette. Now I can just go ahead and delete these things, right? I just wanted that to see what they look like. And so we'll go ahead and remove all those things. So, and so I'll just leave a button and we'll be good to go. And let's go ahead and start by adding a grid. So I'm going to do a 2x1 grid. That's what I had on FlowTrack. And I also had a nav bar, so I'm just going to drag a nav bar on the top. And then I had like an image on the right, and I usually just have text on the left. So we'll do like big text, small text, button, and then I had like a list below that. So I'm going to start dragging these things in here, and now I'm just going to start aligning them, right? So I'll do left align on all of these. Same thing with the button. Do left align. And we'll go ahead and add a couple items on this list. I'm gonna put something else in here, and let's go ahead and change this icon. I put in like a checkbox for this one. So we're gonna go ahead and say this is a check, and let's make this a little bit bigger. And let's go ahead and set the icon color in here to be something green. Oops, I didn't want the text color. Let's do the icon one. Clicked on the wrong one. All right, so I clicked on icon at the top and then changed it to green. And so this starts looking good. Now, I obviously had a background image in my section. So I just clicked on the section settings. I click on background. And in here, I got some things that are already uploaded. So I think this was just called blob hero. You can see, I think I have that one uploaded in here. Yep, this should be it. So I got my hero background image. And then this one, I think was also called hero. So search for that. I already uploaded the files I had when I designed the other site. Now, the first thing you'll notice is like, oh my gosh, this image is cut off. How do I change that? Well, we got this little button over here on the right that has those arrows that you can kind of like smush the image to fit in the space. All right, so I'm clicking those little arrows right there, and we're smushing that image in the space. And so now I can just make this a little bit bigger and do something like that. Also with this background image I just set, right, I can set the focal point of it right here. So if I wanted to stick out more, I'm just clicking on this to set the focal point. So that's how you can have it like go, just choose where you want it to focus, which is really cool. So I'll close that out. We'll shrink the header at the top so there's less space. I'm going to add in a logo. So I'm going to go back into my assets. And so someone asked me the other day and they said, what's the difference between system assets and site assets? Right, so site assets, these are files that you uploaded in this design project. System assets are going to be any sort of image or files you uploaded on any of your sites in FlowTrack, so you can reuse your images across different sites, which is pretty cool. So I got my logo in there. It's a little too small, so I'm just going to drag it to resize it a little bit bigger. That's looking good. And you know what? I'm also going to change the color of this menu right here. Let's just go ahead and make the menu text white. So I'll make that white. So that's looking better. I might even make that a little more normal. So I'll do normal. It looks like I gotta change the text color back again. Oops, not the background. I don't want to do the background. So go in and select text and we'll just make that white. Okay. Perfect, looking good. And so the next thing I want to do is let's just go ahead and add in some padding below this, or a gap. So I clicked on settings and I'm just going to uncheck all same, and we're going to just say add some padding below. All right, so I'll put some 15 padding below. Go to the next one, same thing. I'm going to put a little bit of padding below. Go to the next item, the button, same thing. I'm going to add a little bit of the padding below. And so that's starting to look good. And I might even want to push the heading text down a little bit. So I might add some padding above, right? So I'm just sliding these sliders, kind of putting it where I want, getting it to look how I want it to look. And of course I can change this to say, get your spell trial now. Right, and now it's like, oh my gosh, my button text is wrapping. What should I do? Well, we actually have the width setting on the button, so we can make it a little bit bigger. We can even make it a little bit taller just by changing the padding in here on this. And let's see. I'm just going to add the padding above and the padding below to do something like that. We'll do 5 and 35. Right, so I got a little bit of a taller button. Now, next we have this cool little option in here where you can change the color on hover, right? So I want this color to change on hover. So I'm going to go ahead and select a different color on hover. So now I got that hover effect. Now, I also want to add in some sort of background shadow. So you have the ability to do a background shadow. So I'll do something like background shadow like that. Now that's too bold, right? So I'm just going to decrease the opacity of that down to be much, much smaller. And I might even make the shadow itself smaller so we can blur it more. And you can play with these numbers. So This one right here, you can see there's an icon over here on the left. This one here is the blur. This one's how wide it fans out. So you can fan it out more or less, depending on what you need. That's starting to look good. I just want a very subtle, shadow on that button with that hover effect. So we pretty much got the first top part of the site. I would obviously come in here and put in some more text and get this to have all the stuff I want. But that looks good for now. The next section on the site was actually super easy as well. And by the way, so it wasn't easy, first time we were building the site. As we're going in there and building the site, we realized there was a lot of stuff that we needed to improve on. And so the team's been all hands on deck to try to get the site builder to be as good as possible. So it's definitely a lot easier now. But we got a big release on the website builder coming out around the end of the month with a lot more fixes in here too. But I just want to show you what it's like building this page. So the next section, we're going to come in here, we're going to set a background. So I can pick one of these like purplish colors, right? And then we'll just change the opacity of the background to be super subtle, right? Didn't have a really big, subtle or hard color in there. Did something pretty light. And next, I want my content to pop. So I'm going to set the intersection background to white. All right, so I'm going to drag this over to white. And so now I got my intersection. Now, I use grids a lot, right? A lot of times you got text on the right and image on the left, that sort of thing. So I always use a grid, get those two different boxes, and then I can start putting my text on the right. And I'll put a subheading on the left. I'll put some text. And I'll put in a list, right? So we got the list. So on here, we're just going to go ahead and make this left aligned, all of this, and put this in here. And I'm going to start adding in a few bullets so we can get an example of what that looks like. And click on the icon to change this. Now I'm going to change this to a checkbox just like we had above. And I'll drop this in here. And let's go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make a checkbox like that. And let's change the color. So I'm going to pick the green color. Didn't want to change the text color. I want to change the icon color. So I'll click on icon and then I'm going to click the green color. And there we go. Now, just like on the other section, I can add some padding in between, or I can just let FlowTrack do it, right, and use the Flexbox settings. So the Flexbox settings in here, you can click on this menu item and you can just say, well, let's space these items evenly so they got some spacing in between. So you can say, smush the content in the bottom, smush it on the top, or have spacing in between. And so that's what I wanted to do. The next thing I can do is we also add some padding, some more gap between the content and the box. So we can come in here and just kind of bring up this padding to something bigger. Maybe we'll do it like 50. That's looking better. So now I can start dropping in some other images. I had something like automation. Come in here, drop this in. Now we got our automation box. That's good. I'm also going to click those arrows to smush the image inside the space. That's looking good. And now the other thing we had on the site, which is really cool, is we had a small little shadow on this box. And that was to really draw your eyes to the box. And so again, it was like this purplish color, right? And we're going to fan out or blur this shadow more and make it a little bit bigger, something like that. Might even blur it a tiny bit more. And that's too extreme, so I'm just going to bring that down so it's super, super subtle. You barely even notice it. It just kind of attracts your eyes to it, which is really cool. Now, the last thing I did on this section was, we want rounded corners, and rounded corners is what we call a border radius. So you got to go in here under decorations and just, bring this in. You can see that makes it round on the corners. So we'll just come in and give that a slightly rounded corner. That looks good. And so once you get this section how you want, right, you're really just duplicating this. So let's say I got it perfect, right? I click copy, and now I got my copy below that. And so we got the copy, and it looks like I don't have the colors on my copy. So that's another bug in here. Looks like the team is going to get that fixed as well. Yeah, we'll get that fixed. But copying is normally a good way to save time and be able to duplicate your work in there pretty easy. I would have to go in and just reset those section background colors again, which is annoying, and I'll make sure the team gets that one fixed. But let's go ahead and dive into the little last part on the site, which was the swiper slider. So on the swiper slider, we got it. So, normally people use this to like swipe images. You can swipe on your phone left and right. We used it for the pricing block, which was pretty cool. All right, so I dragged the swiper slider on here. And so it comes with a few things in each slide. And I didn't want these in my slide. So I was actually like deleting, let's say, the image. And I just wanted something like, text or the plan name, maybe subheading for the price, and then, I don't know, like a line for a divider and a list element to show the list of features, right? So I got something like this. And so I'm just going to add in a bunch of features in here as we can go down this list, and we'll go ahead and change the icon of this to be a checkbox or one of these things. There you go. And we'll go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. And so this one we can say $99 a month, and we got the plan title at the top, standard. And I can start adding some spacing between these or adding some gap, which would be good. So that's how I started building this. Now, let's say I wanted to, I'll delete that text. Let's say I wanted to start copying this slide so I don't have to redesign the slide. So the team actually added the copy slide feature in there. So you can now just click clone, and that does clone your slide in here. So you can save a lot of work that way. That was something new that they added too. But in here, you can come in here and click on the slide. So, and by the way, for those of you that didn't notice that, so as I'm selecting an element on the bottom of the page, it actually tells you what's inside what. So this little blue bar at the bottom says my text. Let me see if you can see this in the video. Oh, you can't. So let me see if I can resize the screen so you can see the bar on the bottom, because I think that'll be really good. You see it? No, can't see the bar on the bottom through the live stream. Well, there's this blue bar on the bottom of the page where I can select the slide that the text is in, and now I get the slide options. And so on the slide options, what I really wanted to do, come in and set a border. I can change this to be a 4-pixel solid border, and then let's go ahead and pick a color. So I'm picking a color. And so that's pretty much what I want. I'll go ahead and make my screen a little bit bigger again. That's pretty much what I want. And so the last thing that I did on that slide was I again added a border radius. So border radius, we're going to round that to be a little bit more round. And we're actually going to go ahead and let's add some padding in here too. So push this stuff down, right? So I'll have a bottom padding, a top padding, to make it look like a pricing card. And let's see, what else do I want to do? Oh, the last thing I did on here was I made the border just slightly transparent so it's not as obnoxious. So I'll just make it slightly transparent. And I'm starting to get the basics of my pricing block. Now I can come in here and, add some more formatting and maybe add some more gap above and below each item. So to kind of like push it down a little bit. And get it to look exactly how I want. But that's the basics, right? That's the basics in here of that pricing block. Come in here, maybe change this text, maybe make this bold. So there's lots of stuff that you can do on there to get it looking exactly how you want it to look. And so that is pretty much it on building the site. Again, our site was those main 3 sections, right? We got the hero image. Oh, we got the pop-up. I can show you guys how to do the pop-up. Who wants to see the pop-up? You guys can drop a comment in there if you guys want to see how to do the pop-up. And it looks like we got some questions in here. I'll go ahead and answer as we're doing it. So Jacob's saying, what's the best practice for full section with boxes? So good question. And there's actually 2 ways you can do it. So we got Okay, so we got 2 different ways you can do it. So the best way to do the full screen boxes is actually to do 100%, height, or 100 viewport height, so 100 VH. And so a good way to show you that would actually be to actually create a pop-up, because we got to do the full screen pop-up in here. So I'm going to do a new pop-up. We're going to give this a name. And so now I got my pop-up. And so when I have my pop-up, it doesn't default to the full screen. So I can come in here and change the size. So this is actually done by the max width. So I can come in and change the max width to 100. I can change the minimum height to 100%. And now I got my full screen pop-up. And instead of having a background color that's just solid white, I can come in here and change the background color so it's slightly transparent, which is really cool. And the last thing is, you can see that little blue close pop-up icon over there. I make that bigger, a little bit easier to see too, so you can just increase the size of that in there. That looks good. And the last thing I did on this one was I actually put in a background image. So you can come into background images, and I think this one was just called pop-up. I had a transparent background image in here. I can just drop that in. And again, I can set the focal point on this. So we can go ahead and focus on a certain spot. That looks good. And then it's really just about putting your text and your form in here exactly where you want. And now we got our pop-up. So let's go ahead and make the text white. And let's go ahead and give it some gap or margin, so it's a little bit over there. And then I can drag my form, and you can see I can start building a full screen pop-up experience. So that's how we did the pop-up. But let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm going to be answering your questions right now. And but that's kind of the design walkthrough experience on how you can start building something in here. If you're noticing, I use the sections a lot. Every time you have logically separated content or different kind of content on your page, you want to put it in a different section. So I got a top section, a feature section, a pricing section, for example. And then inside sections, I'm using grids, right? So grids are how I get those different cells or different columns. I usually just use the 2x1 grids, but you guys can use, 3x1, 3x3, etc. to kind of get the content in there exactly how you want. And let's see, we got another question in here. Do you recommend keeping the padding in between the sections set at 100? So, I like the 100 padding. It kind of does add a good enough space in between each item. So that seems to look pretty good. The only time I don't like the 100 pixel padding is actually on the top part, right? Because it's normally where your nav bar is and you got your logo there. And if you have 100 padding, that just sometimes feels like a little too much. But it's your own personal preference, what you guys like and how you guys want to do that. But that's how, just play with that and get the padding exactly how you want. So good question. So let me know if you guys have any more questions on this. We're going to be doing another video. So we got our Champagne Friday video at 3 p.m. We're going to be going over that and how to going over another topic. So you guys can always attend that video. So I'll give you guys a few more minutes, see if you guys have more questions. I got another person saying, can you review the media query for tablet, desktop, etc.? Does it have the benefit of less options? So that's one thing we do want to add is the ability to set your own custom breakpoint. So right now we got these 4 breakpoints that are built in, and you can come in and set, pick the breakpoint and see how it looks on each device. Now you will notice that when I switch to the different breakpoint, 2 things happen, right? Well, one, that the content automatically responded, so it shifted down. So now the image is below the text. And then the other thing, my background image, doesn't look how I want it to look because the background image is stretching to the whole space. So you can actually come in and specify the different settings for the size. Let's say I want it to be contained in this size, right? So I can just set it to contain, and now I got my image in a little bit of a different spot. And then with this icon, now I can see the mobile menu icon. So this one I actually wanted to make bigger. And then this one, let's go ahead and make it white. That's what I had on our site, right? So we got the white mobile menu icon, and now you can see it responds and looks good on every device. Now you may want to come in here and play with the padding. Like I may not want this image to be touching the text, so I can come in here and just add some gap below and get this to, not be on top of each other a little bit more. That looks good. So it's always a good idea to come in and just tweak this. Now, usually the 100 pixel padding on there won't look the best on a mobile device because that may be too big. So going back to Jacob's question, you may want to actually decrease that padding on the other screen sizes. So just come in and click on the other devices, see what it looks like, and make those kind of fine-tune adjustments in there. So let's see. We got any more questions? What's the best practice for sections, full width or boxed? So it just depends how you want it to look on a giant screen size, right? And I don't know if I can stretch this on the screen share to kind of show you what that would look like, right? So if you have the boxed sections, there's going to be a maxed width of your content. If it's full width, if someone has a giant, 32-inch monitor, your website text is going to be stretched across the whole thing. With the boxed option, you really have the ability to say, fit this content only in the middle part of the website, which definitely helps on there. So hopefully that answers your question, Jacob. Let me know if you have any others, and I'll give you guys another minute. But it looks like that may be all the questions for today. Now, we are going to be releasing this template for you guys. So I just want to get the other fixes in the website builder out. So we're actually going to push that back till Monday to try to get you guys that white label template in there. The team's been all hands on deck. I think the last few weeks now, time flies, trying to get the website builder to be in great shape. So it's definitely come a long way since where it was. And, the next big release is going to be, the end of the month. So, or Monday. So, stay tuned for that. And, we'll be getting you guys out that template. I'll check if there's any other questions. So I appreciate you guys joining me today. I'll see you guys soon at 3 p.m. Eastern for Champagne Friday. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Bye.